What's up, sisters? It's your boy, Beef, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into an absolute banger of a build, the Grave Knight, part of the Arcane Vanguard. Ever wanted to be a heavily armored undead warlord who crushes enemies with cursed strikes and dark magic? Well, good news, this build is for you. We're talking huge damage, insane survivability, and enough spooky flavor to make Casper the Friendly Ghost call in sick. And we're taking it all the way to level 20. I'll be breaking down the best race, stats, gear, and strategies to turn you into a relentless death machine, so stick around. And if you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Tell me what kind of nightmare warrior would you build using this subclass. Also, if you want to talk builds, share cursed creations, or just hang out with some cool people who love Baldur's Gate 3, join the Discord, links in the description, come say hi. But without further ado, let's get straight into the build. So first off, what even is the Grave Knight subclass? The Grave Knight is part of the modded Arcane Vanguard subclass, which is all about mixing magic with melee. Every subclass has its own take on spellblade style gameplay, and Grave Knight's take is, what if I did big damage, healed myself, and also made necrotic damage my entire personality? It's kind of like Eldritch Knight, but instead of being a nerd with a sword, you're an undead monstrosity with a PhD in pain. For this build, I'm going to be running a Shadowheart Origin because this subclass is perfect for an evil Shadowheart run. I mean, she's already edgy, why not crank that up to 11 and give her a full necrotic glow up? If you want to make a custom character, just about any race will work. If you go with half-orc, savage attacks makes your crits even more brutal. Githyanki are fun for all of the different bonuses that they have. Drow are great for their spooky underground goth vibes, and you could go with a wood elf for the extra 3-meter movement speed more than anything. But ultimately, for this build, I'm going with Shadowheart. Starting at level 1, we're picking the Arcane Vanguard as our class. Since Shadowheart is a half-elf, she gets a free intelligence-based cantrip, and lucky for us, this class is intelligence-based. For our racial cantrip, I'm going to be taking Sapping Sting. This comes to us from the Mistress Spells mod, and even though it only does 1d4 of necrotic damage, this is perfect for a spellblade because it knocks enemies prone. This is great for us because prone equals free advantage on melee attacks. For our Arcane Vanguard class cantrips, we're going to go with Toll the Dead. 1, because it slaps. 2, because it does necrotic damage. And if your target is missing HP, even more damage. We're also going to go with Poison Spray, stinky but powerful, and will trigger one of our abilities. And we're also going to go with Minor Illusion, because sometimes you just need a distraction. For our spells, we're going to go with Inflict Wounds and Armor of Agathis. Inflict Wounds is great because it's like getting punched by a ghost with brass knuckles. Tons of damage, 3d10, and it can be upcast for even more damage. And Armor of Agathis because survivability matters, and nothing's funnier than enemies hitting you and then taking damage for it. With the Arcane Vanguard class, we get to choose a fighting style at level 1, and we get a bunch of custom fighting styles, but I'm going to be taking Expedient Mobility for an extra 6 meters of movement speed. There are a bunch of really awesome options here, like Read the Enemy, which adds your intelligence modifier to your armor class instead of your dexterity modifier, which would be useful. Empowered Arcana gives you Arcane Acuity, which is also very powerful. We don't necessarily need for this build. Expose Cuts, Critical Momentum, Echoing Malice, they're all very fun ones, but because this character is going to be primarily doing massive damage in melee range, we're going to want the increased movement speed so that we can get closer to our enemies. For our subclass, we're obviously going with the Grave Knight. This subclass gives us innate access to Larlock's Minor Drain, a cantrip that deals 1d6 necrotic damage and heals you for half as much. We also get access to Bone Chill by default, and Grave Bolt, which is kind of like Eldritch Blast, but we can choose whether to do acid, poison, or necrotic damage while applying different unique effects. So one of the main features of this subclass is the use of the Graven Arts, which is a resource that you'll generate every time you deal acid, poison, or necrotic damage with a spell, or a necromancy spell specifically. This resource can be built up to 5 stacks, and each stack makes us more powerful. We can also spend these stacks on even more powerful abilities. For instance, we have Corrosive Blood, which consumes 1 stack of Graven Arts and makes us deal 3 acid damage to any attackers, giving our weapons the Corrosive Wounds bonus. We also have Life Leech, which consumes 2 Graven Art stacks and allows our next weapon attack to heal us for all of the damage done, plus our class level. So this is really fun for doing some crazy damage that also heals us a bunch. As we level up, we'll get access to more ways to spend our Graven Arts stacks, so this is a very fun mechanic to mess around with. For our subclass, we get to choose 2 subclass-specific spells, and I am going with Arms of Hadar and Hex. Hex is perfect for dealing even more necrotic damage with our weapon attacks, and the Arms of Hadar is a fun area of effect necrotic damage spell, so that when we are in melee range, we can just do a bunch of necrotic damage to all the enemies that are near us. For our ability scores, we want to focus primarily on intelligence, so we're going to be taking 16 points there. We're also going to put 16 into our dexterity stat for armor class and initiative bonuses. We're going to take 14 in constitution for the HP and concentration check bonuses. We're going to do 12 in wisdom for the saving throw bonus, and 8s in both strength and charisma because we don't really need them that much. That's about all for level 1, so let's advance straight up to level 2. At level 2, we start by getting the Vanguard Stratagem passive, which makes our weapon attacks scale off of intelligence instead of strength or dexterity, which is absolutely huge to have and makes us way less multi-attribute dependent. For our class spell, I'm going to be taking Fog Cloud for the ability to obscure things at these lower levels. And for our Grave Knight subclass spell, I'm going to be taking Hellish Rebuke because it's a fun way to take our reaction to deal fire damage to attackers. We're also going to pick a Vanguard Talent, which allows us to more customize how our build plays. For our purposes, we're going to be taking Force of Arcana. This gives us a toggleable passive ability that reduces our spell range to a measly 3 meters, which doesn't admittedly sound very great. The kicker here is that most of our spells are melee range already, and we're going to be getting some nice bonuses. Whenever we are near 2 enemies or more, we gain a +1 bonus to saving throws, and gain 2 turns of Wrath upon casting a spell, which means that our subsequent melee weapon attacks will be doing even more damage. At level 3, we get access to Constructed Argument, which gives us a bonus to our persuasion checks equal to our intelligence modifier, which is really nice to have. We also learn some new Graven Arts abilities. Here, we have Death Knell Tolls, which consumes 3 stacks, deals 1d6 damage to ourselves, and causes our next spell to create a wave of necrotic energy that causes all enemies to be bone-chilled and possibly frightens creatures within 6 meters. Mortal Mandate costs 4 stacks of Graven Arts, which allows us to sacrifice 1d6 of our own health to apply a debuff to an enemy of our choice. The next time that debuffed target takes damage, they'll take double damage. Pair this up with any of our melee attacks, or set up a massive dunk from a Storm Sorcerer, and oh boy! Mutual Decay costs 2 Graven Art stacks and allows us to sacrifice our HP equal to double our character level, but all of our damage will deal an additional 1d8 necrotic damage for 5 turns, so this just gives us a bunch of more damage at the cost of our own health. For our class spell, we're going to be taking Mirror Image. We already have a ton of damaging abilities, so a good defensive one is a fantastic pick. And for our subclass spell, we're going to go with Wither and Bloom. This is a Mistress Spell's Necromancy ability that deals 2d8 necrotic damage in an AoE and heals us for 1 hit point per target. This is mostly good for damage, but nice healing utility as well. At level 4, we're going to be taking the Acid Splash cantrip because it is going to give us Graven Arts stacks if we want to use that instead of any of our necromancy spells. For our class spell, I'm going to be grabbing Heat Metal because this is a fantastic concentration option that does fire damage and makes our enemies drop their weapons or take disadvantage on attack rolls. And for our subclass spell, Cure Wounds is nice to have. For our level 4 feat, we're going to take an ability score improvement for a +2 bonus to our intelligence. This character is eventually going to be taking the Great Weapon Master feat, but we don't yet have the War Magic feature, which allows us to do both spell and melee attacks on our turn. Speaking of which, at level 5, we get access to War Magic, which allows us to make a weapon attack on our bonus action after casting a cantrip. This is effectively the same feature that the Eldritch Knight gets, but we get it on our own character, which is really cool. For our new spells, I'm going to be taking Counterspell for our basic class spell, and for our subclass spells, I'm going to grab Vampiric Touch. Since most of our attacks are in melee range and our abilities involve sacrificing our own health, Vampiric Touch is a fantastic pick here so that we can keep ourselves going and give ourselves way more sustainability. At level 6, we get to pick 2 more spells. I'm going to go with Haste for that sweet, sweet double attack, and also Animate Dead for our subclass spell so that we can summon some cool undead companions. We also get to pick a new Vanguard talent, and we're getting a really, really cool one here. Elemental Cascade makes it so that whenever you do a basic weapon attack, all of our weapon damage is converted to the type of damage of our most recent spell, also applying a relevant status effect. This means that we can cast necromancy and necrotic spells, and then follow them up with weapon attacks that will deal exclusively necrotic damage. At level 7, our war magic upgrades to include cantrips and leveled spells, which makes us even more powerful. We'll also get access to level 4 spells, and I'm going to be taking Vitriolic Sphere. This is a huge acid spell that does 10d4 damage on impact, and an additional 5d4 at the end of the enemy's next turn. We're also going to be taking the Shadow of Moil for our subclass spell, which is a spell which allows us to summon a cloud of darkness around ourselves, giving us resistance to radiant damage and dealing 2d8 necrotic damage in retaliation to any enemy attackers. At level 8, we get to pick some new spells, and I am going to go with Dimension Door, because it is a great teleport ability. And for our subclass spell, we are going to be taking Death Ward for both the undead flavor and the buff. For our feat, now that we can cast spells and follow them up with melee attacks, we're going to be taking the Great Weapon Master feat so that we can do even more damage that will also be converted to necrotic damage. At level 9, we get access to some new Graven Arts abilities. First off, whenever we land a killing blow against a creature once per round, we can gain a stack of Graven Arts. Visage of Undeath is an ability that costs 1 Graven Art stack to cast, and basically turns us into an undead form for a while. We won't be able to regain hit points and suffer similar effects as undead, like turn undead, and we are unable to gain new Graven Art stacks while in this form. However, we have advantage on attack rolls, immunity to necrotic damage, resistance to radiant damage and all other physical damage types, immunity to poison, and free dark vision. Baptized in Blood, however, allows us to sacrifice 1d6 of our own health and 3 stacks of Graven Arts to spread a blood surface around ourselves, corrupting our surroundings with the Baptized in Blood effects. We also get access to Equal in Death, which consumes 4 stacks of Graven Arts and marks a target. Every time that we take damage, that target will also take half of the damage that we just took, so it's kind of like the evil version of Warding Bond. For our spells, we now have access to 5th level spells. I'm going to be taking Hold Monster so that we can hold a monster and then get super crits on those enemies that are in melee range. And for our subclass spell, we have some really cool options available to us now. Enervation allows us to mark a target, dealing 6d8 necrotic damage and healing us for half the damage dealt. It's a concentration spell similar to Moonbeam or Call Lightning, where you have to activate it on your turn. We can use this to deal a ton of damage with our main action, and then weapon attack, dealing all necrotic damage afterwards. Macabre Explosion, on the other hand, is kind of like the new Exploding Corpse cantrip coming in patch 8, but does way more damage. I'm going to be taking Enervation for now, because I really like that idea. At level 10, we're going to get some new spells, and I am going to be taking the Thaumaturgy cantrip, because we don't really need anything new here. For our spells, I'm going to go with Polymorph for a fun crowd control option. And for our subclass spell, I'm going to be taking Contagion, because it is a really fun spell that allows us to poison a target and inflict them with a specific disease of our choosing. We also get to choose a new Vanguard talent, and I am going to be taking Follow-Up. There are a bunch of really cool options here, but at this level, I think that Follow-Up is a fantastic choice. This ability will give us a +3 bonus to attack rolls when attacking after casting a spell or cantrip, so whenever we are playing this class the way it is designed, we are just going to get a nice bonus to our accuracy with all of our subsequent weapon attacks. At level 11, we get access to Tactical Strikes, which basically just gives us a free 1d4 to all of our weapon attacks. For our spells, we now have access to 6th level abilities. I am going to roll with Blade Barrier, and also for our subclass spell, I'm going to go with the Macabre Explosion so that we can blow up some corpses with a lot of force and necrotic damage. I know that this is a 5th level spell, but we are going to grab one of the 6th level spells a little bit later. At level 12, we get some new spells again. I'm going to take the Globe of Invulnerability as well as the Circle of Death. Globe of Invulnerability is awesome because we just pop it up and then we are fully immune to all damage for 3 turns. This one can win us several different encounters in the game. And Circle of Death is a big 8d6 area of effect attack that just does a ton of necrotic damage to a huge area. For our feat, I'm going to be taking another ability score improvement so that we can boost our intelligence to an even 20. At level 13, we get access to Spell Cutter, which gives us advantage on saving throws triggered by creatures that we attacked on our previous turn. We're going to be picking a new spell, and I'm taking Wall of Fire, since it's always a fun spell to have access to. At level 14, we get to choose a new Vanguard talent, and I am taking Student of War. This is a really fun ability that gives us a new bonus based on the school of magic that our spells are. We're mostly going to be casting necromancy spells, so we'll mostly get that buff, the Necromancy of War, which we will go over in a little bit when I can demonstrate it. But if you happen to be casting any other spell from another school of magic, you'll get the Abjuration of War passive, the Conjuration of War passive, Divination of War, Enchantment, Illusion, Evocation, and so on. At level 15, we get access to Only Equals Negotiate. We can invoke our Graven Arts to force all enemies within 9 meters to grovel before us. Really awesome, because we can just tell everybody to sit the hell down. At level 16, we mostly get to just pick a new feat, and I am going to be going with Warcaster so that we have advantage on our many concentration spells. At level 17, we don't really get very much. At level 18, we pick a new spell and a Vanguard talent. For my spell, I'm going to go with Greater Invisibility because it is an awesome utility to have. And for our Vanguard talent, we get access to Extra Attack War Magic. This means that when we make a bonus action melee attack, we can do it again. We're now a full caster and also a full martial. Hell yes. At level 19, we get to pick our final feat, and I'm going to go with an ability score improvement so that we can bump our dexterity to 18. And finally, at level 20, we learn Unyielding Defiance. This ability allows us to mitigate incoming damage based on how much health we are missing. If we're missing 10% health, damage decreases by 1. At 20% health, decrease by 2. At 30%, decrease by 3, and so on. That just about does it for the leveling on this character, so let's take a look at the gear that allows us to become a full-on Harbinger of Death. So for this build, the things that we want to focus on are medium armor, necrotic damage, and self-healing. So the first thing that we want to take note of is for our helmet, we're going to use the Horns of the Berserker. These will give us a +2 bonus to attack rolls when attacking creatures that have already taken damage, which most of our attacks will be taken against enemies that have already taken damage to our necrotic spells. Additionally, Bloodthirst makes it so that our melee attacks will deal an additional 2 necrotic damage, as long as you don't have your full health, which we will rarely have. If you don't deal any damage this turn, which, haha, we're always going to be dealing damage, you'll take 1d4 necrotic damage at the end of your turn. Oh well, not really something that we have to worry about too bad. For our cloak, we're going to use the Shade Slayer cloak. Stealthy critical. While hiding, the number you need to roll a critical hit while attacking is reduced by 1. We're going to be hiding a lot because we're going to be in the darkness, so this is just going to give us a nice bonus to our critical hit chance. We're going to use the Armor of Agility. You could use theoretically any medium armor that you want, but I like this one because it's going to add our full dexterity modifier to our armor class, which means that because we have dexterity of 18, we're going to get the full +4 benefit there, bringing our armor class to a 21, which is really nice to have. For our gloves, we're going to use the Dark Justiciar gauntlets. Your weapon attacks deal an additional 1d4 necrotic damage. Really awesome, because there's not really any other glove that is super applicable for a necrotic damage build. The Helldust gloves will apply necrotic damage to your unarmed attacks, but we're going to be using weapons most of the time. We're going to be using heavy weapons a lot of the time, so we're going to go ahead and do this just for some extra 1d4 necrotic damage. We'll also get a +1 to our strength saving throws, which is nice, and we'll have access to Beckoning Darkness, which is a bonus action ability that we can use once per turn to curse a creature to be haunted by darkness. It takes 2d8 necrotic damage if it enters or starts its turn in a lightly or heavily obscured area. We're going to have better uses for our bonus action because we can do melee attacks on our bonus action. But if you don't want to, then this is always a nice ability to have access to. For our boots, we're going to use the Boots of Persistence, which will give us the freedom of movement and long strider buffs, which are really nice to have. You could use theoretically any boot that just gives you the ability to run around however you want to, but I like this one because it gives us that effect. For our necklace, we're going to use the Amulet of the Harpers, which will give us advantage on our wisdom saving throws and also one use of the shield spell. Really nice to have. We're going to use the Ring of Twilight. You gain a +1 bonus to armor class while obscured. We're going to be obscured a lot, so getting our armor class up to a 22 is a nice bonus. And the Ring of Arcane Synergy. When you deal damage with a cantrip, you gain Arcane Synergy for 2 turns. We're going to be dealing a lot of damage with cantrips, so this is really nice because it will add our spellcasting ability modifier to our weapon attacks, which is really nice. We'll get a +5 to all of our weapon attacks. Our endgame weapon of choice is going to be the Sword of Chaos. You get this by defeating Saravak, and it has the Chaos ability. On a hit, regain 1d6 hit points, which is great because we're going to be needing to regenerate some health, judging by the kind of pull and play of our abilities. Since this is obviously a very late game weapon that you won't get until near the end of the game, there are several other weapons that will be very useful for you in the parts before Act 3. One of the great options is the Sword of Life Stealing, which on a critical hit, the target takes an extra 10 necrotic damage as long as it isn't a construct or an undead, also granting us 10 temporary hit points. This is a great weapon to use before we have access to Great Weapon Master, because you can do this one with a shield like the Justicier's Great Shield and have a sword and board style play before you end up grabbing some heavy weapons. If you do want to go with heavy weapons, however, you can use the Susur Greatsword, which silences targets on hit, or the Doomhammer, which will basically just apply Bone Chill on every hit, which is really nice to have. You could also use the Justicier's Scimitar, which is really cool, because if you attack with advantage, you have a chance of blinding your target. Since we're going to be in the dark a lot, we're going to have advantage on a lot of our attack rolls, plus Illusion Blade will give you advantage on a lot of your attack rolls when you're in the dark. You could theoretically also use the Knife of the Undermountain King, which is a really nice weapon to use. You could use this in the very early game, as soon as you get this from the Creche. And if you really want to make an evil decision as Shadowheart, you can get the Shar's Spear of Evening, which will give you advantage on saving throws while lightly or heavily obscured. This weapon deals an additional 1d6 to creatures that are lightly or heavily obscured if you want to use the darkness abilities a lot. You'll also get immunity to Blinded, a +3 weapon enchantment, and Shar's Darkness, which is really cool. But ultimately, by the end of the game, I am going to be going with the Sword of Chaos because it does a lot of damage. It is a great weapon that is two-handed, so we can get our Great Weapon Master bonus to it. And it also will heal us for 1d6 hit points each turn. We don't really do a lot of ranged attacks here, so you can kind of do whatever you want. You can go for the Vicious Shortbow if you want to do a little bit more damage with your crit attacks, or you could go with the Hellrider Longbow for a +3 bonus to your initiative and advantage on perception checks. This one's really nice, so I think this is what I'm going to go for because I love having an initiative bonus. But now that we have our gear and items squared away, let's go ahead and take a look at some of our buffs. So this character really doesn't have access to too many buffs. Our first one is primarily going to be our Death Ward, which is just going to make it so that the next time that we take damage that would reduce us to 0 hit points, we'll remain conscious with 1 hit point left. Really cool, just gives us a free revive. We're also going to use the Armor of Agathis ability so that we can give ourselves some temporary hit points. I'm also going to upcast this to level 4 because 20 hit points is plenty for me. And at this point, we now have 143 base hit points plus 20 temporary hit points, in addition to our Death Ward and freedom of movement from our boots. If you happen to have a bunch of dead bodies around, you can use your Animate Dead ability. I have a mod which allows us to spawn several more undead, because when we upcast it, we can eventually go up to a level 9 spell. When we do upcast our Animate Dead spell to a full-on level 9 ability, we can summon whole battalions of zombies. We get Zombie Battalion, which can create 13 zombies that specialize in melee combat. We can create 9 ghouls, create 13 skeletons, we can create 9 flying ghouls. You could fully just have a big ol' army of undead with this. It's a lot of fun. But because I don't have 13 or 9 bodies around me, I'm not going to do that here. This build is plenty powerful on its own. But regardless, if you had a bunch of bodies, you could do that. However, that is pretty much everything to go with this build. So let's pop into some combat and see just how powerful we are. So we're going to start with these 3 guys over here, but the first thing that I'm going to do is I forgot to drink an Elixir of Bloodlust because they are awesome. I'm going to go into turn-based mode and drink a potion of speed. Unfortunately, this is going to use our bonus action, so we can't do any melee attacks on this turn, but that's all right, because we're going to do something even more fun than a melee attack. We're going to do Enervation. And who are we going to do it on? We're going to do it on, well, Enervation is a dex save, and this is an archer, so I'm not going to do it to him. I'm going to do it to this mage, and actually, let's do it to this guy. He's got more health. We receive some health. Yeah, I know, I assaulted everybody. Now we're in combat. Let's see what we can do. Oh, we got our bonus action back. Cool. That means we can attack. But first, I'm going to do Wither and Bloom, and we're going to cast it right here, so we can get these two guys. Oh, hit me with your counterspell. That's rude. Well, since I didn't cast a spell, I can't make my bonus action attack, but I can just hit him with a pommel strike, I guess. Yeah! Extra attack? Okay. I'm not complaining. Septic? What's septic? Affected entity has its constitution reduced by 1 and has disadvantage on constitution saving throws. Hell yeah, brother. Okay. End our turn. Come at me. Try again. When did their AI get that smart? Let's do this again. Let's try that again. Okay, let's try this again. But this time, we're gonna stand far back from the edge. Enervation on this guy. Get cooked. Attack. Dude! Huh? That's the last time I fight those guys. Nightmare difficulty. Fucking combat extender. Okay. So those guys were fucking exhausting me. I'm going to use a potion of speed here and fight these guys because they won't knock me off a damn edge when I'm playing solo. Okay, speed potion. And what are we going to do first? Let's start with the Circle of Death. Oh yeah. So we have this passive ability here, Force of Arcana. The range of all your spells ranges are lowered to 3 meters. Whenever you are near 2 enemies or more, you gain a +1 to all saving throws and gain 2 turns of wrath upon casting a spell. So that means that we can cast Circle of Death only kind of within 3 meters. We can toggle this ability if we want to have full range, and we just won't gain our wrath effects, but we are going to go ahead and use it because we want to generate them. So let's come real close to them, and then we can do Circle of Death right here on this guy and make our AoE just hit everybody. It's also going to hit us, but that's okay, because we're going to regenerate so much health. Haha! Shield, please. You think you can volley me? Yes, you can. Just once, though. Because now we're going to do something really nasty. And by nasty, I mean I'm going to come over here, and I am going to... Where is it? I'm going to Arms of Hadar. Oh, no. I'm going to move this way. Go ahead and hit me. Now I'm going to Arms of Hadar right here, so I can hit all 3 of them. I'm going to upcast it to 5th level. Because I can. Woo! And now we have our bonus actions. Let's attack. Manhunt attack. Who do we want to kill? We want to kill this guy. 37, all necrotic damage. Hell yeah. And we've got our extra attack, so we can do... We are immobile. Brother. 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 I hate these guys. I hate these guys so much. That's why we're going to give him another Circle of Death. Because we bloodlusted, so let's just do this. I don't care if I get hit, too. I really don't care. Let's cleave, because I think I can hit him if I cleave, yeah. Critical miss! Oh, well. Come here. Yeah, you try. Try again. I'm gonna hellish rebuke you with a level 9. 62? I really didn't need to do... Oh, I hate you. Dude. 59? That's fucking crazy, man. I'm gonna pick up my weapon. I'm gonna equip it. Thank God for speed potions. I'm gonna use Vampiric Touch and upcast it to the 8th level so we can regenerate some serious hit points because we're so close to dying and I don't want to die. That guy. And now we can use our bonus actions to hit this guy. And then we can come over here to use our other bonus action to hit this guy. 7 and 31. And because we killed somebody, we've got some extra action to use. But I don't really have a spell that I want to cast, so I'm just going to use my weapon action. Hell yeah, brother, you're dead. I'm seriously low on health, though. So let's come down here where they can't shoot me. Keep going. No, keep going. Please don't hit me. Please don't hit me. A little help, please. What you gonna do? Come this way. Try. I need a big time heal. A big time heal. I'm gonna dimension door myself here, as close as I can get. And then we're gonna run. And I'm gonna hit this guy. Woo! Conjuration of War. I don't know what that one did. But let's just use that. Now he's dead. Wow, okay. Huh? So now that we have a few stacks of the Graven Arts to look at, we can see what this effect does. At 1 stack, you gain +1 to your armor class. At 2 stacks, you ignore necrotic, poison, and acid resistance when dealing damage, which is really fun because there's a lot of enemies that are resistant to all 3 of those things. At 3 stacks, you'll gain resistance to necrotic, poison, and acid damage types yourself. At 4 stacks, you gain advantage on Constitution saving throws. And at 5 stacks, you'll gain an additional 1d4 slashing damage on your weapon attacks, but take 8 necrotic damage and lose 1 stack at the end of your turn. So ideally, you don't necessarily want to stay at 5 stacks. You want to kind of hover around 4 stacks if you can. 5 stacks is fun if you want to deal some more damage, but it will obviously deal some more damage back to you. That combat encounter obviously nearly killed me like 3 times. Keep in mind, I have some serious difficulty enhancing mods on. I have nightmare difficulty and also enemies reworked. So my enemies have access to a bunch of different feats and features and abilities and passives that make them incredibly powerful. And then they have combat extender, so they can be smarter and do things like roaring thunder me off the cliff. And do 50 damage with a single arrow. I survived, though. Now that we have all these bodies, can I animate dead? No. Because they got burned. Oh well. Regardless, we can short rest. Get ourselves back to some health. Take a potion. Do I have any potions? No. Not on me. Who's attacking? Ow, shoot. Who are you? Bozal Op Shukuri. Huh? Let's vampiric touch him. Come here. Critical miss. Okay, well, let's hit you then. Yeah! Let's hit him again. Hell yeah, brother. He's dead. So, yeah, we do a ton of fucking damage. We just gotta be careful of some difficulty-enhancing mods that make enemies also do a ton of fucking damage. This class is quite powerful, but I have pretty low HP considering our enemies can do 50 damage in one turn. But that is where I'm going to wrap things up for now. If you enjoyed this build guide, like the video, subscribe, and tell me your thoughts in the comments. What builds are you going to be running with this class? And if you want to join the nerdiest, spookiest BG3 community ever, come hang out in the Discord, link in the description. I hope you all have a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next one. Catch you next time, sisters!